This is A Smaller Life, a podcast about making more conscious and more ethical choices within our crafts. Hosted by me, Saskia de Feiter. I'm a small business owner who wants to grow by going smaller. Together with local makers, I make tools, yarns, and accessories for knitters that want to buy less, buy better, make more, and make it last, keeping away the overwhelm and all the ridiculousness of over-consuming within our crafts. In the podcast, I endeavor to answer the question we ask ourselves before we start a project. What do we buy? Where do we buy? Who do we buy from? Or don't we buy at all, but use what we already have? Because when you think about what you do, you take more time and end up with less of everything. As a result, you'll get a smaller life. Today, I'm super excited to introduce you to Saskia Maas. She's a yarn dyer and her brand is called Ovis, etc. Ovis being the Latin name for sheep. And she has such interesting things to say about why she chooses to do certain things in her business. And that goes from choosing the base of the yarn to the technique she uses for dyeing, the kind of products that she has. She's super knowledgeable and also is a queen of conscious decisions within her business. I wish you lots and lots of fun listening to Saskia and Saskia. Hi, Saskia.
Hello.
Good to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yay, a duo.
Yes.
We were just talking before we started recording, reminiscing about the festivals where we have worked together. And it's actually really funny because we didn't really know each other. And then we spent a week in my camper van together. So it was super intense right from the start, but
Yes.
we stayed really good friends, and I wish I could see you more, obviously, but that was so cool.
Yeah,
That
it was.
Yarndale.
Good memories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's first, before we start sharing our memories with everybody, let's first start with introducing you. Could you tell the people, the good people, a little bit about who you are and what you do for a living? Or not for a living. Depends.
How I spend my life.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I was born in Breda, and that's in the south of Holland, near the Belgian border. And now I live again near a border, but in Germany, close to the Dutch border, but then on the total north of Holland, and then just a hop over the border. That's where I live. For college, I went to art. Well, first I did horticultural college, and I became a florist. After that, I went to art school where I studied photography. Then I did loads of things that that don't have anything to do with what I'm doing now. And now I have a day job next to my yarn business, and my day job is I sell houseplants. And so that relates to my florist background. And then I'm a yarn dyer as well.
And how did you become a yarn dyer? How did you?
I became, like I think many people nowadays, thankfully, became more conscious about the things that I was using. So with yarn as well. And I couldn't really find a lot of yarn, or it wasn't, I mean, of course I could find it, but I noticed that the yarn that I considered to be good and nice wasn't very widely available. That's a totally different story now, because there's a lot there that really, really changed over the last few years. But back then it was very superwash orientated. And I definitely didn't want to, I knew back then that I definitely didn't want to sell superwash yarn.
Can you shortly explain what superwash yarn is and why you don't like it that much?
Superwash is yarn that's chemically treated, so it won't felt. But the whole characteristic of wool is that it can capture air, and that's why wool is so warm. And superwash, there's different methods to make a yarn superwash. Either by chemically taking the scales of the yarn or the hair shaft, or coating it in a layer of plastic, basically, which
this always makes me laugh. Why?
Yeah, it defeats the complete. I mean, I maybe I'm a bit extreme, but I wouldn't even call superwash yarn wool. Well, especially if it's coated in plastic, then it's got nothing to do with wool anymore.
It has lost all the good properties of wool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have no idea. They just think, but I just want to wash the wool.
Yes.
I want to be able to wash the wool, because they have brought up with the idea that everything that they use and their bodies has to be cleaned every other second, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and be put in the washing machine. Yeah.
Yes. And
because that's practical.
But what's the alternative? Do we have to wash our wool?
No, wool stays clean longer. It has a self-cleaning, how do you say that? Self-cleaning.
Property?
Yes, exactly. So you can air it out. And well, I myself still, when it then is necessary to wash it, I still do put my woolens in the washing machine on a wool setting. And that works perfectly fine. But no, you absolutely don't need to wash your woolen socks. You can wear several times, before they need to be washed.
Yeah, I think for lots of people that's like, ooh, gross. But really dive into that and listen to what Saskia is saying. Wool really has this self-cleaning property, and airing it out is enough for at least, well, that's different for a lot of people. Like, I know people that never wash their sweaters and they just hang them out, or I put them in the snow when we had snow with socks. I can understand if at a certain point you're like, I really kind of want to wash my socks now just for my mental comfort.
Yeah.
But if you really know what wool does, you don't really need to wash it. Not that often.
No. Not for of course, when you get mud or
like stains, yeah.
Yes, but yeah.
Yeah. And I think what's also important is that from the perspective of a yarn company, you would choose superwash because you want to sell your yarn and you know that your customers want that. But you and I, we think differently. We think like the opposite way. We know things and we want to share that knowledge, and hopefully people will change their ways because of it. But I remember hearing somebody saying, this is relatively new to me, that the superwash yarn takes up the dye a lot better than...
Absolutely.
Is that true?
Absolutely, yes. All the speckles, no, I mean, there is people who do speckles on non-superwash yarn, but the really, really sharp, tiny little speckles and really...
the bright color pops.
Yeah, that's just looks the best on superwash yarn, and that's just a fact. And so certain dyers with a certain style choose superwash yarn because of that, because it's their style, it's their style of dyeing is suited for, and it would look completely different if they would switch to non-superwash.
Yeah, but you work more from the bottom up, so you correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But so you look at the basis first, where the yarn comes from, what type of base it is, and then go from there. Yes. Is that true?
Yeah, as well. And also my dye, I chose the brand and the type of dye that I use.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how do you find your bases? Do you go up to a farmer and say, I like your sheep?
That sounds almost creepy.
Hey, dude, I like your sheep. Can I come over with my scissors?
So no, I don't do that. I would love to start doing that though. Well, not in a not in a creepy way like that, but yeah, I would love to. For as long as I've had my yarn business, I thought I didn't want to do that, but now I've come to kind of.
You want to work together with
And more and have be more in control of the yarn basis. So I would definitely like to do that in the future. But up until now, I haven't, and I get my yarns from as many. Yeah, how do you say that? Wholesale or mills. I want to have as many sources as possible. Actually, I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I get them from loads of different places.
So why is that?
Maybe I like to collect just as many yarns that I like and that fits my philosophy or my business's philosophy. And I almost admire yarn dyers that just have like 4 bases or even 10 bases, I don't know. And I always think, oh, but that's nice. Oh, and that's nice, and that's nice, and that's nice. But the yarns do need to fit my philosophy.
Hello, friends. I just want to say something to you quickly. So if you're liking the podcast, if you're liking what I'm talking about, consider joining the mailing list. I have bi-weekly updates on the podcast and or business insights and tips. The occasional exercise to get you ahead. If you want to actually talk to other business owners about the things that I talk about here on the podcast, why not become a Yavol community member for as little as €8.50 a month? That's like buying me coffee and a croissant. But don't do it for me though. Do it for yourself, because I promise that you will get something out of it, either the emails and or the community. So you can either go to the show notes or sign up through yavol.myflowdesk.com/pattern shift. I hope you'll join us. How did I do that? What is your yarn-based philosophy and how do you pick them?
In the beginning, it was just being non-superwash and being relatively local. I do have an exception to that, or a few exceptions to that though. But in the beginning, I still had, for example, sock yarn, which was non-superwash, but still had nylon in it. And I also stopped selling that because I just wanted to be completely plastic free, and nylon is plastic. So now all my yarn bases are non-superwash and nylon free. So just all natural materials. I have a few Dutch yarns. I have British yarns. I have my silk yarn is from Switzerland. And I do have a few yarns which are the wool and comes from South America, and it's also spun in South America. But those yarns have rami added, which I find just very special, and they're just really nice yarn bases. And because I like the yarn bases so much, and because the rami is a plant fiber, which is very strong. It's almost a bit like hemp, but rami is related to the nettle family. So it substitutes nylon.
Right.
And so the yarns with the rami in it are very good for sock yarns, but they're just overall very nice yarns for basically everything.
So just shortly for listeners that are not great knitters, we tend to want to use nylon in sock knitting mostly because it helps us to improve the durability. So less holes, less heels and toes that are poking out. And so this is a whole discussion, right, in the sock knitting world. Like, do we want the socks to last longer so that they're more, I don't know, sustainable in that way? Or don't we want to use anything that is man-made and not helping the environment in the process and as a product? So I have spent some time learning about this, and I have used your sock yarn, and I've actually also even used merino yarn for socks, which they say the fiber's way too short, and you cannot use merino for sock yarns unless there's nylon in there or something. But there's so much that you could do to make your socks more wearable, like tighter knitting,
Yeah.
make them fit better, make your shoes fit better, make sure that you don't walk on your stone floor at home. Like, there's all these different things that can really help to make your socks last longer. But this rami is amazing, and silk as well. We do have
Silk,
natural
yeah.
fibers that improve the durability of our socks.
Yes. And
Yeah,
the way of spinning as well. If yarn
exactly.
is spun with a high twist, it's also more durable. Yeah.
Yeah. One day I'll put on my ballsy hat and I'll ask Clara Parks if she wants to come in and talk about sock knitting.
Oh,
And one
that would be
day,
nice. That would be nice.
everyone
Actually,
react to this podcast and leave messages and say, yes, yes, get Clara. And then I'll knock on her door and I'll ask her.
you can't now though, because you can't fly over to America at the moment.
No, but this is like on
Maybe
the
in the future.
internet. No,
Oh,
but I
yeah,
mean here for the podcast.
yeah, but you can't literally knock on her door. That's wrong.
No, there's not a lot of literal things going on. No.
No,
I will
no.
just make a knock noise and on Instagram. That's so weird. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, but I actually have one more thing to say about like non-superwash and no nylon sock yarn versus, because I've also read and heard a lot of people who are so used to superwash nylon sock yarn
Mm-hmm.
that then for the first time knit socks out of non-superwash yarn. And then when you wear the socks, wherever there's friction, so under your heel or under the ball of your foot, they say, oh, but immediately my socks felt and I didn't
Yeah.
even put them in the washing machine yet. And they've already felt just by wearing them.
Mm-hmm.
But that's actually not felting. So that actually says that people are not used to how wool behaves. Because yes, when there's friction, then wool kind of becomes one, all the little strands become one, and it's called matting, and which makes your sock stronger. So under, all those places that have friction and your sock mats makes your sock stronger.
Such good information.
So don't panic when you when you wear your non-superwash socks for the first time and you take them off and you see that happening, because that's actually good. And yeah. I'll get off my soapbox now.
No. That's why you're here, because I know you know so much about this. And so you share a lot of values with me when it comes to locally produced and animal friendly and all those kinds of things. So you try to buy as local as you can. And then I always say, we live in Holland. Holland is super small.
Yes.
Local to a Dutch person is something else than local to an American person. So in my opinion, I think Europe feels like locally enough when it comes to yarn and wool. Because in the Netherlands, we don't have as many types of sheep, or do we?
We do, but I'm absolutely no sheep expert. But I'm not. I know I know a bit of the breeds that my yarn
Yeah,
comes
that's
from.
what I want to know about. The
Oh,
ones you
okay.
got from the Netherlands.
Okay. Well, Shetland I have, Tesselaar, Well, Shetland is not a Dutch breed. There you go. It's not
There
a
you
Dutch
go.
breed.
But they live here.
They live in Holland, yes. Tesselaar is a very Dutch sheep, though. And
That's what I think English-speaking people call Texel.
oh, okay. Yeah. But I like, obviously, I like it, otherwise I wouldn't sell it. But Tesselaar wool isn't the most nice or soft, or it isn't.
No.
And I think a lot of people that buy Tesselaar yarn from, like, non-Dutch people who buy Tesselaar yarn, mostly buy it for the name, I have the feeling.
Yeah.
Because it sounds exotic, which sounds weird because it sounds everything but exotic to us. But Tesselaar is, again, I sell it, I like it, I have Tesselaar socks myself, which I absolutely love, but it's absolutely not the nicest wool that I can think of, far from.
Yeah, exactly. Like you could totally scrub your skin with it and then have like really soft skin.
Yes.
But isn't it like an acquired taste though? Like if you get into all this nitty-gritty of the yarn and fiber world, you learn so much about wool and its properties. And then if you knit a lot or if you work with wool, you get curious and you want to know what properties what kind of sheep or fiber has, and then
Yes.
um, if you know more, you know what to use what kind of fiber for. So definitely I would never knit a tesselar shawl or scarf around my neck because that's quite sensitive, but socks, yes, definitely.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and Shetland, I think I consider Shetland a very soft wool,
Yes, me too. Yeah.
but I think the general public talks about it as if it's really itchy. I really wish that I would love to give people like a tasting platter, like a smorgasbord of different types of fiber, and then let them try it out and really get the feel for this whole world that's out there. And that's what I love so much about all your bases. They have all these characteristics, and you you tie them together in the collection so well. They all really look like Ovis etc. yarn, even though the base is so different. And you do that by dyeing your yarns a certain way. Let's dive a little deeper into that. Your colors are amazing. They're so typically you, but people often think they're something that they're not.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because I kind of focus on that my yarns are very consciously dyed and consciously sourced and environmentally friendly. So people then think that I use natural dyes. And also I think because of the use of colors, I think that they
I think so. Yeah, I remember
I don't
saying that
know.
to you, and you're like, "Oh, really?" Because I feel like your colors really remind me of naturally dyed yarns. There's a specific palette,
Hmm.
and they look like they might have been dyed in a natural way,
Yeah,
but
it sounds funny to me
it's
because
a
I don't.
lie.
It's
It's a
because
lie.
it is. Yeah, and I really on festivals as well. Again, when we could still go to festivals, people often are like, "Oh, is it naturally dyed?" No. Oh, I thought you did natural dyeing, but no, I don't. I use an acid dye, but I use a environmentally friendly acid dye, and it's GOTS certified. Doesn't contain any heavy metals, and the brand that I use, it's Greener Shades dyes actually. It only comes in 9 colors, and it's the primary color, so yellow, blue, and red, and then all the complementary colors in between, so orange, purple, green, and black. That's basically it. When I started dyeing, I never really went for a certain color palette. And to be honest, I remember when we went to Yarndale, which was No, it wasn't it was only my second yarn show, but the one before was just, I had a tiny little stall, and it was tiny, and Yarndale was an actual proper stand. It was,
we had such a pretty spot. It looked so
yes,
good.
and it was big. It was really big.
Absolutely.
And I remember for the first time, which was kind of weird, for the first time seeing my yarn on display in such a way. And I thought, oh, I only saw my yarn at home in bins, and I was so afraid that it wasn't cohesive because I never went for that.
Wow.
I just dye whatever I like.
Yeah.
I like this color, so I'll dye that. I try to dye that color.
Well, your taste is very cohesive.
So apparently, because I remember seeing it all hanging there, and I thought, oh,
so sexy.
it does all fit together nicely. Oh, and I was so relieved because I thought it was going to be a hot mess of colors together.
It's so funny. It's so funny that you say that, because I never thought that. Like, I think it's one of your strong points, actually.
Yeah, but I never did that on purpose, so it feels like a lucky accident almost.
So it is natural in a way.
I guess, yes, maybe. Maybe.
But let's get back to that God certified green way of dyeing, because I think a lot of people have the impression that natural dyeing has to be good for the environment.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And in a way it is, of course, but those plants or whatever is used also has to grow. So it also uses resources. I'm definitely not a natural dye expert. But what I know of it is to dye in a natural way, it costs a lot of heat. Most of the time it needs to simmer for a very long time, which uses a lot of heat. It uses a lot of water because you need to rinse it a lot. Then you need to set the dye. Not always, but in most cases, you need to set the dye with a mordant, which again uses water and again uses heat. So it's a long process, which is beautiful, of course. It's very slow and it is fascinating, but it's absolutely not the most environmentally friendly way of dyeing that you can think of. I very consciously chose to dye the way I dye because with acid dyes, you only need to bring the water up to a certain heat, which is just below boiling temperature. And when it's there, it's there. You can turn the heat off, and it's set. The dye is set, and when you make sure all your color is being, I don't know how to explain it correctly.
The water can become clean, basically.
Oh, absolutely, yes. So when you don't use too much dye, so that all the yarn can soak up all the dye, then you only need a little rinse because there's nothing to rinse out of. The only reason I rinse is to kind of neutralize the acidity, because you dye in very acidic water, and when you rinse, I use a bit of soap, and which makes it kind of neutral again.
So can I go back to one step back? Is when you use that acidity, it could be either citric acid or vinegar, and vinegar smells a little bit more. But if everything you have left from that process, you can, without any harm to the environment or not a lot of harm, you can just throw it out,
Absolutely, yes.
But the mordants you use in the natural dye process, not all of them, I know, but some of them are basically heavy metals.
Yes.
And you have to dispose of them in a very conscious manner.
Mm-hmm. I don't know enough about it, but the chemicals that are being used for natural dyeing, which you don't have to, but with some colors you do, because otherwise they fade. It sounds very counter. You use something natural, but you need something unnatural. And then again, you can also use soy milk But then soy, I don't think is the most environmentally crop to.
I'm so going to invite a natural dyer and ask them about how they do it the most conscious way possible.
Yeah.
Because I know a little bit about the process, both processes. And I know these lovely, lovely people that use the natural dye process that have a lot of values like we do. So I'm sure they've found ways to make the impact a little less. But I can totally see why you've chosen to go in this direction. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you mix the colors, like you said, there are eight colors.
Yeah, with black 9 colors.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they all have to they all have to be mixed in order to to become a nice, like, just the plain colors are just very Crayola like.
Yeah. Could you describe the type of colors that you make, what they look like, and maybe mention some colors?
I think clay and toffee are very me, I think.
Yeah.
I think all my colors are have a kind of dustiness about them.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. Jeans type of colors, like worn jeans.
Yes. Yeah. Which actually a colorway of mine is literally called favorite jeans. So it does have the color of worn jeans.
Yeah. And it looks like in the combination with these clay type colors, it does look like it might have been the blue. Help me out.
Oh, indigo.
Indigo, yes.
Oh,
So
okay.
you get that whole feeling with the combined palette of it has that aesthetic. So that's what I love about your work, that the aesthetic of the natural linen, clay, like hand thrown pottery, that whole vibe. Your yarns have that, while you've spent so much time on making these decisions to do it the best way you can with respect for the environment. And I think that is really admirable.
Thank you. I kind of find it funny to hear your description of my colors, because I never went for that feeling. Like I said, I never thought, oh, I'm going to go for the clay throwing linen vibe.
Time for a message from our sponsor. AM Art and Stationery is fresh and crispy like a new sheet of white paper before you take out your snazzy fountain pen and write about your heart's desires. Whether you'll be writing a love letter or if you are reconnecting with a long-lost friend, amstationery.com has got the most amazing hand-drawn and hand-lettered designs. My favorites are in the Galaxy collection. The letterhead sheets can even be customized with your initials. And if you need a custom order, Ali can do it. If you want to order, but if you don't have anyone to write to, she's got you covered. AM Stationery's Pen Pal matching service will match you to your new best friend. You can write about letters and pens and papers and inks and, oh gosh, I think I need a match too. Plant your flag at amstationery.com and land some of those moon papers right now.
I never thought, oh, I'm going to go for the clay throwing linen vibe. So it just happened. Like, I don't know. It just...
It's who you are.
I guess. I don't know.
You are a lover of nature, of plants. You have a bunch of animals.
Yeah, we have a tiny little doggy and 2 cats and 5 horses.
5 horses.
Yes, Icelandic horses and a Shetland pony.
So that must take up a lot of time.
It does as well, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know any better. Well, there was a time that I didn't have horses, of course, but...
So you have a day job. You have your yarn business. You have almost a farm. What does a typical day look like at Ovis, etc.?
Well, I'll tell you my ideal day, because
yeah, let's do that. Focus on the ideal day.
My ideal day. My day job starts in the afternoon, because I actually always try to... Most people like to be finished early, so they have the afternoon off. And I'm an absolute morning person. I always get up really early, so I love to, for my day job, to start late.
What's early?
Usually I get up at 6.
That's early, yes.
So when I have to start my day job at 12, that means I have 6 hours, which is almost a full work day, left to spend. So that's how I like to do it. And while, for example, the pots are simmering, because the preparation of getting the actual yarn in the pot, that takes up the most time. But when they're in the pot and when they're slowly getting to the right temperature, that usually takes over half an hour, then I can, for example, go and feed the horses or go and take the dog out. So yeah, when I'm really busy, finishing a wholesale order, for example, I always do yarn dyeing in the morning, and when it's a work day for my day job, then I spend the rest of the day at my day job. And I'm not an evening person. I can't do anything after. When I come home from my day job, that's it.
Yeah.
But so I like to spend my dyeing time either on my days off or before I have to go to work.
Yeah. So because you're a knitter too, as a hobby knitter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you do that at night? Do you still have the brain power to do that at night?
Yeah, when I can stay awake.
That's convenient.
When I can stay awake, then I'd like to knit but also in the morning when I definitely don't dye yarn every single morning before I go to work because, but then I do my knitting either in the morning before I go to work or in the evening after dinner.
And what does your workplace look like? Do you work in the house or?
Yes. Yeah, just in the kitchen. Yeah.
Really? In the kitchen?
I don't have a fancy studio or nothing. No, it's just so I have to clean up everything after myself again. And
wow.
Yeah, the kitchen and the bathroom, all the rinsing of the yarn, in our house, the kitchen and the bathroom are literally next to each other, which is convenient.
Yeah. So you have like colored drops, like a track from the
no, actually not, because what we just talked about, when all the dye goes into your yarn, there's no dye to be spilled.
And that does mean that you have to be like, yarn dyeing isn't hard, but doing those things to get them just right. Mm-hmm. That's where you get really professional at it, because when you dye in the beginning, you will still get a lot of color out of the skeins if you rinse them. And you have to really know the right temperatures and all these things. And you definitely will learn that by doing, I think. Is that how did you actually learn?
First watching YouTube videos, literally. And then I just start doing it. I just did loads and loads and loads of 10-gram skeins, and
the mini skeins.
Yeah, and then like, when I put just a tiny little bit more green, and it just loads and loads and loads and loads. Trial
and error.
Yes, the way I do my colors, I think that's where my photography background comes in, because if you print color pictures, I don't know if you've ever done that
not color,
in a dark room?
Only black and white.
Okay, but it works the same as basically editing a photo on the computer, where you take away a yellow hue, or when your picture is too blue, or your picture can be too red, and the same is with yarn colors. That's how I do my yarn colors. If I have a certain a color comes out of the pot, if I'm trying to get a certain color, and I see, there is a bit too much yellow, or the color looks too yellow for what I want, then you can add a bit of blue, for example, you can take out a bit of yellow. But I dye my yarns, I guess, the way you edit color pictures.
That's so fun.
That's
Yeah.
yeah. So
Where do you get your inspiration for colors?
um yeah, you just mentioned nature and all, but that's funnily enough not where my inspiration comes from. It comes from fashion, like the color toffee.
Yeah.
I saw somebody with a coat walking through the shop of my day job, and I thought, oh, I thought that's a nice color, and I remember that color, and I tried to replicate it. So that's how toffee came to be.
Wow. So you don't think like I would love to have a toffee colored sweater? I'm now making that color.
No,
Is
because I saw the color. I saw a coat. I saw
Yeah.
somebody with a coat in that color.
Yeah.
And I think kind of the same was with clay. That was just a color that, well, that there the fashion maybe comes in because that was just a color that you just saw a lot of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
It's like a
and
pinkish, sandish type
like a
color.
very dirty pink,
Yeah,
but
dirty pink. Like it's
yeah.
basically the color of my walls, actually, but nobody can see them. So
Yeah, but you just saw that color around a lot,
yeah,
and
true.
I
Yeah,
liked the color, so I thought, well, and in the end, that what we make with yarn is gonna be fashion in a way. You're
yeah,
gonna wear it, so you want it to be fashionable colors that you also see in ready to wear clothes, and
yeah. As a yarn dyer, because we've talked to Brechtje earlier and she makes spindles, so we were talking about spinning, and a lot of spinners spin for the sake of spinning, and then they have this skein of yarn, and that's the finished object, right? Which is crazy for some people because they're like, no, that's when it starts. Then you start knitting or crocheting or weaving, and that's when it starts. My question to you is, do you look at your yarn as a finished object, or do you have a vision of what it will become? Or are those like two chapters, or is it a cocktail? That sounds crazy,
Oh,
but maybe you know what I mean.
kind of, but I think both, because a skein, sometimes a skein can be just very, very pretty as a skein, and you almost find it a shame to even make it into a yarn ball or into a cake.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Sometimes, yeah, and that for all yarns that is, I think. But definitely also, the colors need to be wearable. Yeah, no, I think of the colors as like, oh, I would like to have garments or socks or
Yeah,
out of that color.
you'd wear it.
I would
You
wear
you'd
it.
want to wear it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, I was wondering if we talked about speckles and you're not dyeing speckles, and we talked about the technical reason behind that. But do you dye mostly solids, like one color, or what does your yarn look like in terms of the way the color is spread in the skein?
Most of my colors are solids or semi-solids or very mildly variegated.
Yeah.
They're not too wild. Not that you can't wear wild colors, but that's not my personal style and taste, I guess.
Mm, yeah.
For socks, I guess when I dye yarn with the idea that it could be a sock, so the actual sock yarns, I think that's a bit more fun to make the colors a bit more fun. And I also have yarns that I dye with the shibori style, so
Mm-hmm.
they have speckles, but actually not.
That's because it was tied so that the color doesn't reach the base.
Yeah, exactly. So they have little Mondite specks. The variegated colors are sparsely. I don't have a lot of them. And still the colors that are in those colorways all are kind of related.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're all or in blue or greenish family together.
But they
Um,
all have that quality of a hand dyed yarn where it's not a solid color block. They all are very lively. And also some of the yarns that you have these little, because of the way you mix your colors, they have this
Hmm.
little bit of a tiny piece of color here and there that looks
Yes.
like it's not supposed to be in there, but it's so characteristic. What is that about?
That's actually just the dye comes in powder form, and those tiny little specks are actually little powdery bits that haven't, for some reason, have not been dissolved in the water and then stuck to the yarn
Yeah,
and stayed
I love
there.
them.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's that's what it is. So it's
yeah.
actually not. It's, I think, oh my god,
No, they're great. They are like little giggles in the yarn.
it's not. They're not supposed to be there, but yeah. Well,
Well,
they.
if you find one and you don't like it, you can just cut it and start knitting again. But I love them. And they're not like all over the yarn or anything. I just saw one or two and I just it's really fun. Now, let's talk a little bit about sets. Because
Oh,
I think we are
mhm.
both lovers of sets.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love them.
Yeah, me too.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, mini skein sets, you mean? Or
Yeah,
yeah,
mini
any
skein
set.
sets are
Yeah.
sometimes you do a 50, what is it? 25 grams, 25 grams, or 50-50 Shetland you had. Because I used to sell Saskia's yarn in my shop. And this is fun to talk about for me because the general customer, let's just say the general customer, is a little bit freaked out by set. What are they for? What am I supposed to do with them? And we, like, the sauces are the exact opposite. We're like, ooh, what can I make with this?
Yeah, what can you not make with
Yeah,
them? Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
give us some ideas.
Um, well, I just heard you mention the Shetland 50-50 sets. They actually do have a purpose, and that's for the mittens or colorwork mittens or a hat. You could also make hat out of it, but they're really, really suitable for colorwork. And with a set of 2 times 50 grams, that's perfect for a pair of mittens or a hat. So they do kind of have a specific purpose. But of course, you could also use it in a yoke. Just get a set and use another yarn for the whole body and use those 2 colors in the yoke. That's possible as well. And then I also do mini skein sets. And for a long time, they didn't have any purpose or unlimited purposes, actually. Also, stripy socks or shawl borders, sweater yokes, whatnot, blankets. But a while back, Cynthia, who's from Cynthia on Instagram and Ravelry, she actually bought a mini skein set, my mini skein set from you, which I thought was again a very nice connection again.
Yeah.
And she designed 2 bunnies and a full wardrobe for these bunnies with a mini skein set, using up as much as possible of this whole mini skein set, which I think, I mean, she's a genius.
She is. She's going to be on the podcast too later.
Oh, great. Lovely. So that's a perfect purpose for if you really can't think of anything that all Cynthia's little creatures could be knit with a mini skein set, basically. But yeah, no, I
Yes,
love,
limitless possibilities. So if you
yes.
open up your head and just basically just go to the Instagram accounts of Saskia and Cynthia, and if you find hashtag miniskein or Pinterest, Revelry,
Oh, yeah.
wherever you want to go, find miniskein projects, and there's so much there. I also wanted to mention the Skein Deer's patterns. She has really nice patterns that you can use Saskia's yarns with for mittens and stuff. And you can also see on Saskia's Instagram account like examples of that. Do
Yeah.
you actually look at the colors if they work together? Because that's like a whole different skill set, right? To know colors that would work together in color work.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah.
do you just go like, oh, this is pretty?
Uh, Both as well, actually. Again, looking at fashion, but also interior design, there's often like pillows or curtains that have a certain pattern with a combination of colors that I think, ooh, those colors look really, really nice together. That's also where I get my inspiration from. It can literally come from curtains anywhere.
um, so I wanted to end with a little bit more of a businessy vibe. So we've spent a lot of time um, talking about the artisanal side. So there's like your ideas for color. That's where your artist wakes up, and then your artisanal side where you like go behind the pots and make the thing. But then you need to sell it.
Yeah.
Now you have an online web shop, and we've mentioned yarn shows before.
Hmm.
Obviously, there's not a lot of yarn shows right now, and I used to sell your yarns in my shop. We spend a lot of time talking about prices with Brechtje and also with other guests that are coming. But I'm more interested this time to talk with you about how do you get your yarns out there?
To be honest, it's just Instagram. That is my yeah,
Shop window to the world.
exactly. Yeah, my form of self promotion and marketing. I really should get a newsletter out, and then not just one, but like monthly. Yeah, I should do that. Done a few, but that's already a lifetime ago. But I need to get better at that. And I guess word of mouth
Yeah.
as well, and yarn shows. I never could have imagined that I would enjoy them as much as I have been before I
Yeah.
started doing those, because those are just so fun.
Yeah, they
And
are.
yeah, they're really,
And I
really,
think it's so funny because I basically learned from you and from reading different books about the topic that although people might not see me as such, I am a total introvert as well as you are, I think.
yes,
So
absolutely.
we are completely knackered after all that communication with people and all the sounds and the colors and everything. But that doesn't mean that we don't enjoy it, right? Like coming together with people and
Yes.
talking about your product and showing off your skills is such a wonderful thing.
Yes. Oh, and I love it. And I love seeing your customers, because there's loads of time people come up to you and they say, "Oh, look," and they come and show you pictures of things that they made from with your yarn, and or they tell you their Instagram name, and then you're like, "Oh, it's you." And it's so nice to meet those people in real life, and the other way around, because people come up to you and they say, "Oh, it's so
Yeah,
nice to finally see you." And yeah, it's so rewarding to do that.
that's a great word. It is really
Yeah.
rewarding.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and just like it's like meeting people from your um I don't want to use the word tribe because I don't think it's a really good word to use in this way, but maybe clan, that's the same thing. Like people from with a similar that feel like family, right?
Yeah, you're kind of people. Yeah.
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 And that's almost magical, and I really miss that. That
Hmm.
but like I could like compare having a shop and going to shows, and this is going to be a solo show in the future, but I used to be kind of critical as well about the shows because although I know they're so important for the small businesses, they can kind of get in the way of the local yarn shop. Because people go travel for shows and then spend all their budget on the small businesses that are there, and then the local yarn shop kind of feels that, right? But
I can see
that's
that.
kind of a whole different thing. We're not going to go there right now. But what I so loved about selling your products on the show is that people will come especially for you, and they already understand what it is that you're doing, what it is that you're trying to say, your message. They kind of already understand. There's no ruis. Like, I don't want to call customers clutter, but I've mentioned this before in the podcast, that there's people that don't understand the level of values that you have when selling yarn. They just want a cheap ball of yarn, and in a show they are there because they love what you do.
Well, they're
And
almost most of the people are real yarn connoisseurs that
yeah,
and they understand. Yeah, they understand the value of good yarn. Yes,
exactly. And that makes it so fun, because you don't have to go into this whole discussion of price and why it costs what it costs, because most of them already understand, and they're especially there to get it. So
yeah, I don't have that comparison.
No,
of course, people would never really even get to my website if they're looking for acrylic yarn. So
they won't even land where you are. That's true.
Yes,
Whereas if you're a yarn shop in a street, people will notice yarn shop, and all kinds of yarn is expected there. So
yeah, I can imagine that.
Oh gosh, let's just hope that we can go back to the kind of being together and sharing the love for what we do with people that also love it. I can't wait, and let's do it together again one day.
Yeah. And now in your case as well, if you only have an online shop, people normally never have the chance to see everything together and feel it and squish it. I could definitely, if somebody says, "Oh, I'm so curious for this and this base, could you maybe send me a sample?" I absolutely would do that, but that's nothing compared to just seeing the whole everything together and be able to compare and feel it. So the yarn shows are well for both us as small business owners, as the customer, just very important and fun.
And you do have some shops that sell your yarn.
Yes, but they of course also never have the whole collection. They never have all the bases. They choose.
But they can, like, if there's no show, they are basically your shop windows in the country. Or do you sell worldwide? Do you have shops worldwide?
As well. Yes, yeah. I have a few shops in America now. Those are the most current ones that I'm working with. So so people in America, that's
we'll make sure that people know where to find you. But if you could just state your Instagram account and your website right now, that would be really good.
Okay. That's both Ovis etc. So Instagram is just Ovis etc. Just all as one word. And my website is ovisetcetera.com.
Great. Thank you so much. I think we covered it all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Saskia.
Well, thank you.
I told you this was going to be a good one. Do you have any questions? After listening to a couple of episodes, do you feel like you are getting the gist of what I'm trying to do with this podcast, A Smaller Life? Did you know that on the website, we have a little button you can click and you can leave a message? I would love it if you go over there and let me know what you think of the episode, if you have any questions, and I'm happy to answer them in another episode. Everything is welcome. If you just want to leave an idea for the podcast, it's open. Go ahead, leave me a message. Thank you, and I hope you listen again next time. Bye. A Smaller Life is more than just a podcast. It's connected to Javol, an indie yarn and tool shop from Rotterdam in the Netherlands, with an online community that's all about bringing back the consciousness in our crafting practice and businesses. The website is www.ja-wol.com. Find our Conscious products, learn more about the free community, and sign up for our Conscious Knitting Club membership and our weekly newsletter. You can follow me on Instagram at Jawel Rotterdam. If you're a regular listener, consider making a monthly contribution and becoming a sponsor through our Patreon page. If you're able to make a financial contribution, it would mean a lot. The show is free for you, but it's not free to produce. If you own a business that fits the narrative, I will happily make a mini commercial for you. If you are a maker, small business owner, or otherwise experienced in running a business with a conscience, or know someone that fits the description and want to tell my listeners about your experiences, get in touch with me via the website or send me a DM on Instagram. Knowing more and choosing with a conscience makes the world better. If you have any questions about an episode or want to leave a note to me and the other listeners, click the button in the latest show notes on the website and talk. One of the easiest things you can do to support the podcast is to leave an honest review on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to the podcast on the platform of your choice so you'll never miss an episode. And share it in your social network or even just mentioning it over coffee with a friend. I'm only one person and I count on you to help me spread the message. Thanks for listening. Bye.